working class rising up. This is the ruling class punching down.
My day bigger your day.
First rule of gladiator school, bro. Don't punch down.
Charging into a goblin.
Hail Trump!
The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within.
Control your own body.
We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
We can fight the entire grinding system. Nobody can. But together, everybody can.
I did nothing wrong.
Hello and welcome to Did Nothing Wrong Live, the show that cuts through the noise and helps you make sense of the information environment around us. I'm Griff. With me today is Jay McKenzie. Carl Folk is at a secure, undisclosed location. In today's episode, school is indeed apparently out forever, and Trump and Secretary of State little Marco Rubio tell a federal judge to go get bent. Thanks again for your support. Keep listening to learn more, and remember to smash those like and subscribe buttons because you like supporting independent media and journalism. Well, it seems like it's no more pencils, no more books, as Trump signed the long-rumored executive order shutting down the Department of Education. This has been a Heritage Foundation wet dream forever, and one of the points of Project 2025, which they said was a pack of liberal lies. And by the way, that's not piss on your head, it's raining. Really, we promise. So they finally did it. They finally decided that they're going to send all the power back to the states, as they put it, and shut down the federal bureaucracy involving education. Can you believe this?
Yes, I can, even though the states already have, I won't say all, but most of the power to determine what their curriculum looks like. I'm sure you in Seattle have a very different curriculum than what we have down here in Tennessee.
The Antifa history class that they teach in the state is just something else altogether. You gotta go.
Oh, I believe it. Although honestly, you know, it's Tennessee, and about 70% of people here voted for Trump. But when I go to my second graders class, you know, they have those days where parents get to come in and look at what they've been working on and talking about, and I just think, this is actually surprisingly progressive. They're talking about people and children all over the world and learning how different things work. I know it's stuff about China and Southeast Asia and Africa. And I just think, if Chris Rufo saw this, but that's all. Like, they would, of course, call that woke. And it's really just, this is the world we live in. It's despite the nativists who are currently running the government, it's a very global world. We're all interconnected, and it's good to know those things. But I think we both agree that despite very serious educator Linda McMahon now being head of the Department of Education, remind me, what are her credentials as a
she was head of the Small Business Administration in the first Trump administration, but her real big credential is that her and her ex-husband, Vincent K. McMahon, ran the World Wrestling Federation, also known as World Wrestling Entertainment, for a number of years. And she would be periodically on camera on that, and she would look away from several scandals that happened over the course of that company involving steroids and sexual harassment and drugs and any number of other things. And it's a pretty ugly story when you start looking at how the WWE got ran for a number of years, that it's just now all kind of starting to come out. And you really wonder why anybody who was anywhere near that gets a federal job, especially a cabinet level position like Secretary of Education. But, you know, when you're in with the boss, then the boss takes care of you, I guess, is the message that we're getting
well, I guess the WWE is the MIT of performance enhancing drugs, right? Or is that me?
Oh man. Yeah, they definitely had their share of scandals in the 80s and 90s and the 2000s, and they cleaned up their act somewhat after a really, really nasty incident involving a guy named Chris Benoit, who, you can Google this if you really want to know, but he had a rather publicized awful crime that he committed, and they finally realized that this is something that they needed to take care of, because a lot of what was driving this was the fact that there was this unchecked culture of you work no matter what. So these guys were taking any number of painkillers, any number of, steroids, growth hormone stuff in order to keep going. And they finally instituted a wellness program, and the jury's kind of still out on that, but guys aren't quite having to kill themselves quite as much for the business as they used to.
Yeah.
That much is serious. But Linda McMahon was definitely in charge when all that stuff went down. Linda and Vince were definitely of that era where, like, you work no matter what, you perform no matter what. It's a hard business. And I'm not going to say they're responsible for it. Obviously, Chris Benoit was responsible for his own choices, unfortunately, but they're definitely guilty of creating a culture where guys felt like they needed to do that.
Well, and if you look at, getting back to Trump's executive order, if you look at that history with WWE, and there's a level of just heartlessness there that really people and their emotions and the physical and mental toil that the people in the WWE worked under, it requires your bosses just not really care a whole lot about you. And once again, you've got Trump signing this executive order, which, while I think we both agree it's essentially part of a plan to resegregate schools in this country, and that's the way it's heading. School choice is going to benefit those who already have plenty, and they're going to get more, and the ones who are going to be left behind are people of color and lower income households. But also, I mean, explicitly with this, the people who are immediately going to be left behind are the kids with disabilities. And they have essentially cut just about all of the funding that goes to these kids, and that gives them the help and the support they need to learn and to live as fulfilling a life as possible, given whatever their circumstances are. And I think in a normal and in a healthy society, we want to help those people. We want to help everyone succeed or get to whatever success is for them. And these people, these heartless people, think, well, they're not worth it, and we don't care, and they're not useful to us, and so it's not their problem anymore. And damn, man, that is.
So I got to ask the question, like, what's the end game for that? If you have taken a non-trivial percentage of the population that was able to live a fulfilling and functional life because of the support they got from stuff like this, and basically said, you're trash, we don't value you at all, you're going to get whatever you get, and then when you get out of school, you're just completely on your own. How do you think that's going to end? How do you think those people are going to end? I mean, is this more clients for the private prison industry? Because in a lot of cases, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about people who got behavioral support, counseling, ways to basically function that they're not going to get under these new guidelines, at which point they're not going to be as well adapted to live in society, and they're going to end up not being able to live in society due to some choices.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, because this is going to run the whole gamut of kids who are, if your child has Down syndrome, no, they're never going to have a normal life. But it's not, I mean, the full spectrum of people here. You have kids who are always going to need high levels of support. You also have kids who maybe are suffering from abuse, or there's PTSD related to that. You have kids with mild autism, ADHD, things that can be treated, things that aren't going to be cured. It's going to be a lifelong issue that you're going to have to deal with, but you can live a normal life. You get the help and support that you need.
Right.
You can be a normal, functioning, happy person who honestly is indistinguishable from the rest of us, because we all got our own shit going on. Right. So yeah, I mean, those kids, they need help early, because the longer out that help comes, if it ever comes, the harder it's going to be. Once you build in those habits and those those thought patterns and those way of dealing with problems, like it is harder and harder to break that. And yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think realistically, Trump and these people would look at someone who's has Down syndrome or some other condition that's going to require lifelong care and just think there is no value to this person. I mean, it sounds terrible, but I think that's it. And with the others, I mean, if they even give it a thought, it's, well, rub some dirt on it and, pick yourself up, kid.
Learn to deal. We all
figure
did,
it out.
Pick it up, kid.
And it's terrible. I mean, I can't help but think though that, look, I mean, with some of these, the Nazis euthanized people that they deemed surplus, that they said were less than, that were, I mean, it wasn't just obviously the Holocaust and the deaths of 6 million Jews was the thing that people remember and talk about, rightly so, but it wasn't just Jewish people. It was gypsies. It was
homosexuals. It was anybody that the Nazis felt was in the way of creating their perfect Aryan society. And that was the disabled. That was the Jews. That was the gypsies. That was the Roma. That was the people who were any way, shape, or form different. And they were trying to stamp that out. And you start to see the parallels here. You really, I mean, okay. So calling people a Nazi, they're obviously not from, the Nazi region of France. So we can't really use that phrase, but we see the parallels here.
I mean, they can't get away with that. So they can't do it. And I'm not saying they would do it if they could. Okay, fine. It hasn't happened yet, yada, yada. But it's the same rationale. I mean, it's like these people should be neither seen nor heard, is what Trump and his supporters would probably tell you. And they don't care. And they don't want their money, supposedly, their money, their tax dollars going to this because they think it's a waste. And it's terrible, but it's where we are.
I seem to remember a sermon that some guy gave a few thousand years ago, ostensibly. And one of the things that he supposedly said was something about the poor and how you will have them with you always. And you could expand that a whole lot to the idea that you're always going to have people who aren't necessarily as functional in a society as the vast majority of people. And that's a question every society's had to answer about what do we do here? And if this is the answer that we've come up with in 2025, God help us. God help us, really.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think that this is what Jesus would have done. And I also think, I mean, you can't separate that from the other part of this for them, which is that, as usual, it's about the money, it's about the grift, because with dismantling the Department of Education, there are a lot of questions now about the management of federal student loans. According to CNN, the loan portfolio of the Department of Education totals a staggering $1.8 trillion in debt, with an estimated 40% of loans past due. Now, there's questions about how that's going to be handled, who's going to handle it. And of course, what's the oversight of those payments going to be? And are the people who are in charge of those oversight already fired, or are they about to be? I mean, they've gutted the everything related to civil rights. I mean, everything in education related to civil rights is essentially gone, or it has been reduced drastically. But like, I can't help but think about the questions about student loans, because, I for my sins, I do listen to Charlie Kirk and Bannon and these people, and they have
you poor
these same
bastard.
people, these same people who were so up in arms about Biden canceling student debt, and I can't do that, because rules used to matter, and that Constitution was something we used. Yeah, it's still there. Still exists, Marco Rubio. But Look, they were so mad at Biden for doing that, for trying to help people, but at the same time, they have in between their segments, on the commercial break for both shows, they have ads for privatized loans, privatized payments for student loans, and we can help you with those payments, and it doesn't matter if your credit is bad, and we just it's like cash advance for student loans.
Debt
Consolidation.
people. They're always
Yeah,
this kind
we'll
of
help
stuff.
you with those. We'll help you with those. That Hillsdale College education it was pretty expensive. It was worth it, but it's worth it. But you paid for that, so you're going to pay us to go to school, and then we've got this private company that's a partner with us, and you're going to pay them to bundle your student loan payments, and the interest rates are don't even ask. And
we used to call that usury.
I mean,
at one point,
yeah, and
we used to be a proper country
once upon a time. But like,
seriously.
we don't. I mean, it's the same thing. We have in this country, we've basically cured obesity, or there's now a drug you can take, and for most people it has cured obesity. But of course the right has created their own alternative natural obesity drug. They also have ads for that, right? Where don't buy the one that works, because that's big pharma just wants you to be fat and lazy, and actually you just need to try this one because it's all natural and it does the same thing and no side effects.
And they advertise with us.
Yeah, they just happen right after that segment with the debt consolidation of your student loans that you voted to make sure you could still have. And and then My Patriot Supply, I'm sure, is still there for when the world ends, because the Antifa super soldiers.
Our obesity drug made by the same people who make Brain Force.
Yeah, exactly. Don't ask us what's in it. Just like don't ask us
and MK Ultra.
I mean, it's always about the money, and that we always have a better option for you. I just it's always been blatant. It's always been out there, but it's sad that we're at the point now where like dick pills are quaint. He sells dick pills on his side. It's like, remember that simpler time.
Dick pills and gold. I remember this. The other thing that I think that you got to tie in here is that you look at the people that are really profiting from Trump's term, and the private prison industry has done really, really, really well under both Trump terms. Companies like CoreCivic, Geo Group have been able to raise all kinds of money as a result of coming in, taking over the management of prisons. And I can't help but think that one of the goals here of dismantling the Department of Education, stopping a lot of very vulnerable people from getting the support that they need and that they could use to become somewhat functional adults and to stay off the radar of the prison industrial complex. Part of this is a payoff to those people. I can't help but think that this is one way that they can increase the prison population, because there's just no looking at it any other way. These people,
everything else is a payoff, right? Everything's for sale. Realistically, we know there's no amount of corruption that's going to change anything. It's not going to change voters' minds. It's certainly not going to be a scandal that gets Trump out of office or any real hot water. If this, the Pulitzer is waiting for the person that uncovers this. I remember with the private prisons, it being a big deal when back in the olden times, Jeff Sessions, Trump's first attorney general, had a number. Yeah.
Oh, that guy.
Sessions. I mean, the Trumpers have since renounced any association or support for him long ago, but he also had all these connections to private prisons, and there were plenty of questions about why is this guy qualified to be attorney general, but is this okay? they're increasing policing, and they're making all these deals with private prisons, and yeah, and then they did they tried to increase sentences for drug possession, all the drug charges, as they do every time. Democrats roll it back and Republicans bring it back, and maybe worse. But yeah, they're gonna make some money. The people they don't send to El Salvador, those are gonna be the brown people and the hopefully not the political dissidents, but we're still kind of crossing our fingers on that one. We'll have to see. I'm kidding a little bit. I think, I don't know, based on everything that's happened this week, and I know we're going to get into this in our next segment, but yeah, I mean, the private prisons are for the people that Trump supporters don't care about, and they are happy just sending away, but they're no threat to them. The people who are a threat to them, real or imagined, are currently going to much worse places.
Yeah, and speaking of much worse places, we are starting to see that now. We're seeing people who are coming into the country who have opinions that don't necessarily flatter the Trump administration. We're seeing people that are coming into the country who have potentially spoken out about Palestine, spoken out about various causes, starting to get immediately pulled off of planes, starting to, in some cases, get locked up in detention centers. There was a rather prominent story about a Canadian woman who got herself locked in the detention center in Tacoma, Washington for a month because they didn't like something that she had written on social media. And we saw the legendary UK punk band UK Subs coming in this week to Los Angeles to play a show. 3/4 of the band ended up getting turned away at the airport after being locked up for almost 24 hours in a holding cell for, as one of the band members put it in an article about this that we'll link to, there was a reason that they were not prepared to disclose. And the truly hilarious part is that somehow the singer got through and they played the show, but
did he
just
find some friend? I didn't actually see this one.
I don't know how he did it, but I mean, he's been a part of the punk rock scene. I mean, Charlie Harper from the UK Subs is 80 plus years old.
You probably
he probably just didn't. He didn't necessarily look like the typical person that they probably want to gulag.
So what was
on account of
what was the reason they got stopped? I mean, what do we don't really know.
Supposedly it was visa problems, but then they got told that there was some other reason that they weren't prepared to disclose, and all of these guys ended up in a holding cell in LAX.
So we just don't really know. I mean, I'm assuming we don't know. They're lefties or left wing, or
yeah, they're lefties, but I mean, this is a band that's been around since 1977. Their views on almost everything are no secret. They've made 40 plus records. They've been around. This is not something that should surprise anyone. Great band,
I don't know. Is saying nice things about Jimmy Carter enough to get you turned away now? If we're going back that far, he should.
I'm sure they have an anti-Thatcher record. That pisses some people off. Everybody does from that era.
He should have kept his peanut farm and
or something.
Put him on. It's on the AI list now, and that's the thing that people should be aware of, is they are combing everyone's social media profiles, and they are gathering up everything they can about what you've said, and they are using AI to automate it. So, because it's too much information for people to actually sift through. So, hey, you got to say what you got to say, and I get it, but unfortunately, they're watching. They are.
And I would almost suggest that if you are traveling outside the country anytime soon, one of the things you might want to do is not necessarily have certain apps on your phone when you go through the border, or not necessarily have the phone that you usually use. Maybe pick up what some people would colloquially refer to as a burner, something that you don't necessarily mind if it doesn't end up going home with you, and take that through. Because the idea of, having an ICE agent go through your phone just doesn't sound great to me right now.
No.
Doesn't sound great, I'm sure, to probably a lot of people. Even, you think, well, I'm an American citizen, they couldn't do that to me. Well, that's the funny part, because we were talking about El Salvador and how we've started sending ostensible gang members to El Salvador for, detention. Marco Rubio had a sit down with a guy named Nayib Bukele, who is the president of El Salvador. He's self-proclaimed world's coolest dictator. And he said that apparently El Salvador has offered to accept and jail, quote, violent American criminals. He said this is a very generous offer and said that President Donald Trump would have to make a decision on whether to move forward with it. And Trump has made a couple of comments about shipping people to El Salvador lately on his Truth Social. So it's clear that maybe Trump has heard about this and thinks, man, this is kind of a good idea. As Rubio stated at a news conference, there are obviously legalities involved. We have a constitution.
Yes.
Do we? Do we?
Well,
because you would think that this conversation wouldn't even fucking get started if we actually had a functional constitution.
We have a physical document. It is in a building in DC. It is a physical document that exists. Now, how that...
I think I saw a Nick Cage movie about it one time. I think he stole it.
Oh, yeah. Maybe.
But really, yes, there is a physical copy of a document called the United States Constitution. Whether we're actually bothering to read it before we say things like that in public anymore, well, that's a good question.
And what's a violent American criminal? Okay, yes, we have a constitution, and maybe that is going to be respected, although they've clearly been pushing that to the limit. But it's the same thing as what is a quote unquote Hamas supporter? Who is a violent American criminal? Is it someone that you can kind of tangentially link to Antifa? Well, they think that because the right thinks everyone in Antifa is some kind of violent criminal. And
they designated Antifa as a terrorist organization, whatever that means.
So are we violent American criminals? I guess.
Well, I don't think either one of us has claimed to be part of anything called Antifa. So, I mean, one part of me thinks we're out of the woods on this, but it doesn't seem to matter because anybody that doesn't vote MAGA is Antifa to these people.
But, if you can be called a gang member because you have a tattoo of a soccer team, of a football team, which is what is apparently happening right now, and these people getting deported to El Salvador. If we had a guest on our show who claims to be a member of Antifa and we talk to this person, are we then a member of Antifa? It's so
providing material support to terrorism.
Yes. Is that it? And look, we're saying this now, and I think one day, probably pretty soon, their AI is going to comb through what we're saying on this podcast, and then maybe you get put on the list. And well, let's face it, we're already on that list, but maybe we move up a few notches. But
I'm sure we will.
Words matter about as much as the Constitution matters. I don't know where this ends, and it's the fact that this is so early that we're, what is this, barely 2 months in, and we're already at this point. We're already asking this question, and we were asking this question 2 or 3 years ago because we knew the potential was here for this. We knew. I remember reading about Bukele before anybody knew who he was 2 or 3 years ago, and how he toured around DC, and mostly he was still kind of obscure, but trying to make a name for himself. And at the end of Trump's first term, and they kind of didn't really pay attention to him. Trump met with him, but it was kind of okay. Hi, how you doing? But they kept pushing, and it kept growing, and we don't know where it ends. So, and anyone who's saying, well, it's only the gang members, it's only the violent criminals. You can get called anything, and there's no guarantee that anyone is going to come and say, oh, no, you can't take him. I mean, they might say it. Your friends and family will say it, but is anybody going to enforce the truth? Is anybody going to enforce the Constitution? Because we know Marco Rubio isn't.
How is anyone going to enforce this? And that's the problem. I mean, you find yourself thinking like, they're not even showing ID. They're showing up at a lot of places with no ID, no badges, because they're afraid they're going to get doxxed, and they're just hauling people out at this point. This is absolute, I mean, I don't know how you use any other words besides fascism
Well,
or totalitarianism.
it's what it is, and that's where we are.
That's what they do.
And these prisons in El Salvador. I was listening to something this week, and somebody was asking, "Are these the worst prisons in the world?" And
yes.
They are right up there at the top. I'm sure there's some in China that we don't know about that are not good. I mean, there are awful prisons all over. There's the Siberian prison in Russia where Alexei Navalny essentially starved to death. Also not great. There's plenty of bad places, but this prison in El Salvador is intentionally awful and brutal and is meant to. They take these propaganda pictures because it's not just like a place they go and they throw away the key and you suffer silently. They want your suffering to be out in the open and public and to be used in a propaganda film later about why this is all good and right and you should support it. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't wish that upon myself or anyone, because it's hell. And we know that there are people being sent there on the flimsiest,
spurious, dubious charges. I mean, and now we've got the Secretary of State, the U.S. Secretary of State, little Marco Rubio, saying out loud that, hey, we might have to ship some violent U.S. people here. What's violent? Like you said, what is the criteria going to be between the idea of violence and we can send this person to El Salvador? It's
well, and Trump said that didn't he post something on Truth Social about having to send the people who are attacking Teslas? Yeah,
yes,
they need to go.
Anybody who attacks a Tesla dealership goes to El Salvador, according to Trump. And what does attack at this point qualify as?
Stand outside with a sign.
We've got these big protests.
Yeah,
standing outside with a sign. Well, the left always says that words equal violence, so what the hell? Why not?
Yeah, if you put a sticker or a piece of paper on a Cybertruck that says you're a Nazi or fuck you or
a flyer,
whatever,
under a windshield
like,
wiper, is that a violence?
And okay, maybe we're not there today, but this is the thing. We talked in Trump's first term about the Overton window moving, and that's something we talked about a lot, and it did. And it's part of the reason we're where we are now. But like, if the Overton window keeps moving from here,
where does it go?
Yeah, it's Pinochet, it's Franco, it's bad,
and that's where we're at right now. We are at this point where they're testing it. They're trying to see what they can get away with, and we're starting to see some significant pushback. We're starting to see people show up in their numbers to protest this stuff, not just at the Tesla takedown events, but Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have been on a Stop Oligarchy tour that is drawing tens of thousands more people everywhere than they expected to draw. So people are not checked out. There are people who are still ready to come out and say, hey, this isn't okay, but what's the next step here? They have said, okay, we understand that you think it's not okay. We don't give a shit. We're going to keep doing it anyway. What do those people do that have come out into the streets? They're ready to protest. What's the next effective step, I guess, is the question that a lot of people are asking. How does one escalate this past, let's go to some rallies and then go home? And I don't know the answer to that question quite yet, but we're getting to the point where we're going to find out, because I don't see these people just going home at this point. Once you get out there.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You've got to do something. And I mean, for me, the most obvious thing right now, and the Guardian had a report the other day talking about 20% of people support a boycott of companies that are assisting or aiding Trump in Trump's second term and are allowing these policies to happen. Obviously, Tesla is at the forefront of that. But look, the right absolutely weaponized this stuff. And when they did these boycotts, at first it seemed kind of laughable. I mean, remember the Budweiser boycott, and you had all these just
The Target
cringe
boycott.
videos of people taking their Budweiser that they'd already bought out and firing a few rounds into it. And it was ridiculous, but it honestly, all of that stuff in the end, it did work. And all of these companies have rolled back DEI and they have essentially they got what they wanted. Right now, the most effective thing are these protests against Tesla. It is boycotting these companies. It is convincing people that they need to sell their Teslas, that they need to divest and not give the companies that are allowing Trump to do this, and there are a lot of them, anything, starve them and let it be known why you're doing that and be loud.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to evolve and change. I think we're still trying to find our feet and figure out exactly how we move forward. But honestly, the boycotts of these companies, Tesla most of all, are the best start and the best thing that people can do right now.
And making it very clear why, making it very clear what you're doing and why, making it really loud. And I think that you're starting to see that with other companies. You look at where Target's sales have been ever since they went to we're getting rid of DEI. There's been a significant drop in sales at Target Corporation. Yep. So maybe the next thing to do would be to show up at Target with some signs.
And maybe it should. My wife has stopped going to Target, and she honestly hates it. She loves Target. The kids love Target. It's a great place to go, but if you want to enable this, if you want to support this, then fuck you. We'll go somewhere else. And sometimes the alternatives aren't great, but you still got to pick. I mean, you still got to pick the less bad option.
I mean, we know Target hasn't been wonderful, but I'm speaking as somebody who hasn't voluntarily shopped in a Walmart in decades, and Target was the place you go to buy the stuff that you can't. That Walmart is where a lot of people buy it. And, options get a lot tougher. I'm fortunate up here in, state of Washington in the Pacific Northwest that we have a chain called Fred Meyer, which basically is a Kroger chain that does almost everything Target does. And they have a union workforce while they do it. And they actually treat people reasonably well. So Fred Meyer up here is a pretty ethical alternative to all of that. There are places, I used to live in Northern California where there wasn't really a good choice that would replace all of that. So I get it that sometimes it's a lot harder and you might have to go to, 2 or 3 stores when you're used to going to one. But at what price does this stuff come? I mean, it's, is your convenience worth more? And sometimes it has to be, but other times it's like, no, I got some time. I got some extra time. I can go to the other store. I can do this other thing. And you find yourself really thinking that like, this is the only way, in, the words of the boss and, Kill Bill, fucking with your cash is the only thing you kids understand. And that's really where we're at. I mean, Target understood quite well what it was like to be boycotted by the right wingers when the right wingers did it over the supposed trans clothing that they were selling. And now let's let them see it from the other side, I guess. Yep.
I mean, these are absolute kind of first world problems of having to go to 2 or 3 stores instead of one. But so if that's all you can do, it's something. And making these people make a business decision, which ultimately a lot of this is going to come down to what makes them more money. The reason these companies are not naturally progressive or woke or what. They did these things because they made more money if they did them, or at least paid lip service to them. And then suddenly they made more money by bending the knee to Trump and these right-wing shitheads. So we have to turn the tables, and it's a little bit harder, but it's something you can do. I mean, just you do what you can when you can, and that's the thing you can do.
Right. And that's all we can really do at this point. But I think the other important point is to keep your eyes and your ears open for what might be effective forms of pushback on this. And one thing that's very good about this, I think, and, people may disagree with me on this, that's fine. But I think the fact that there isn't really a leader to this, the closest thing we have is probably AOC and Bernie. at this point, and they're not actively leading any of this protest. They're not actively leading any of this movement. They're doing rallies and people are showing up, but they're not directing the protests. They're not directing the Tesla takedown stuff. They're not directing any of the Target stuff. I think that this is the part where almost any individual who's got a good idea on how to push back against this could probably get that individual voice out there and get it listened to, because there is sort of a vacuum right now when it comes to leadership. There's a lot of people standing around and saying, well, what now? And while I'm not thinking that, it's necessarily the best idea for somebody to go out and grab the reins, I think this is actually more of a strength than anything else, that there isn't really a leader they can lock up. There's nobody they can take and put in a gulag because, oh, that person's the person that's causing all the protests. We can lock them up and pull, an Alexei Navalny with this person. They can't really do that. But I think that if you have a good idea for how to push back, or if you think you do, now is the time to go out and go as public as you can with that and say, hey, what if we did this? What if we took this protest and turned it into this? Because everyone's asking that question right now. What next? What now? How do we escalate this? They obviously aren't paying enough attention to the protests because it's not accomplishing what we need to accomplish yet. How do we make it accomplish what we want it to accomplish? So if you're that person, if you are that person, if you have those ideas, or if you know that person, you might want to think about this being your moment to go out and actually push a little harder and get people to listen to what you have to say. Because at the end of the day, we're normal people. Jay and I have been doing this for a while, but if you've been listening to us, you know that we're both pretty normal people when it comes to it. Almost all the guests we've had on this show are pretty much just normal people who ended up in this because of their academic affiliations, or they ended up, studying something that just led them to be activists against this regime, against fascism. And you're a normal person too, if you're listening to this, I'm assuming. So maybe this is your time. This is your moment. And it would be a very good time for you to go out and seize that.
I think we're about
off the soapbox.
Well, yeah, we might be approaching the end here, but I was going to say, if people are interested in that, I think, would you recommend them going and finding Spencer Sunshine and hit the writing that he's done that really teaches you about?
Yeah, absolutely. He's written a bunch of stuff. We've had a guy named Spencer Sunshine on the show several times now. He's a great guy, and he's written several pamphlets, several books on this. 50 Simple Things You Can Do to Fight Fascism, I believe, is the title of one of his.
Well, I mean,
go ahead and grab this.
Yeah, and I honestly need to go through that again. But he absolutely understands organizing, and also it's not just organizing; it's also what to look out for in terms of infiltrators or people who are going to try to essentially break apart whatever you're building. Like, you have to. I mean, realistically, this is, again, not a violent insurgency, because we are not advocating any level of violence. Just make sure the AI picks that up. No, we are not suggesting violence, but this is an insurgent movement, and there are going to be people, whether it's the police or right-wing Trump supporters, who are going to try to infiltrate it, break it up, sabotage it. You have to know what to look out for. You have to be ready, because especially as you grow and gain more supporters and momentum, you need to read the experts. You need to read the people who understand this. And Spencer Sunshine is definitely one of them.
Absolutely. The book is called, or the pamphlet is called, 40 Ways to Fight Fascists, Street Legal Tactics for Community Activists. And it's basically what you need to do to protect yourself, protect your community, do as much as you can. And it's all stuff like, learn about what you're dealing with, do some research, find out who these people are, what they've done before, what has come before in the way of their activism, and how it got countered the first time. Find collaborators, keep an eye on the local far right, prevent the far right from crashing progressive events, deplatform fascists online. None of this stuff is particularly difficult here. Warn people who are threatened, help the families of victims, aid the injured. This is all mutual aid stuff.
And
this is all very much easy type of things that people can
And
do.
people can also listen to your interview with him on this podcast if they go look through the archives. And where can you find his work?
His work is located at spencersunshine.com. And we'll link to some of it in the show notes for this. He is, like I said, one of the guys who's been out here the longest. And while I know from talking to him, he doesn't necessarily want to be that leader. That's not how he sees himself. You know, he's an author, he's an activist, he's a writer. He's been at this for decades, but he's also been around long enough, like you said, to have seen this in several different forms. You know, he's watched it happen, and he's got some pretty good ideas on how to stop it. So his pamphlet on that is free, although it is very good if you find his work useful, if you sign up for his Patreon and, you know, flip the guy some money. He's not exactly rich. Then if your circumstances permit that, please consider doing so. He is definitely one of the people that we should try to keep in the fight as long as possible. And there's a lot of people like that. Find the people who are doing the good work. Find the people who are out there doing that street level, you know, giving you ideas, giving you organizational tips, who are actually doing this stuff. Maybe stay away from the drama. The people who seem to think that it's enough to sit on Blue Sky or Twitter and scream at the regime every single day and talk about, you know, we should just arrest Mike Flynn and the whole thing will be fine. Try to stay away from the stupid bullshit like that, and try to find the helpers. Try to find the people who are actually doing something worthwhile with their time and with their activism. I think that's the way to go, is to just find and make a coalition of the people who actually really want the change, as opposed to the people who are just clout farming out of this whole thing, because those people exist too. Ignore them. It is not their time. Their time is done. You know, they got enough out of you in 2017. Don't let them do it again.
Yeah. Well, and the simple answers they supposedly provide, they might give you a nice dopamine hit, but they're not going to take you anywhere.
That's all it is.
And the real change, the real work is going to be slow. It's going to feel pointless and hopeless and just too hard at times. And I get it. We felt those things too. But you just got to keep doing it, because man, the alternative is bleak. Like, this is not a hopeful send off, but it is, you can do the work and it can make a difference. But yeah, it's going to be hard.
They don't take days off. That's the one thing that I think we've both realized over the time we've been out here researching and podcasting and, you know, doing what we can do to expose this and make people aware of what's going on, is that those guys never take a day off. They don't. For whatever reason, as Jack Posobiec says in his book, they get up every day and fight for the narrative. And if we want to win, we got to do the same thing. If your opponent is training every day for whatever it is they're training for, and you aren't, you're going to get out to the point where it matters, and that opponent is going to have an advantage over you as a result of that. You don't want to let that happen. And we are in that point where we have to stop thinking of this as anything else but a fight, because it's a fight right now.